I've got a lot of your questions to get through, and we're going to do it right now. My name's Jimmy. I'm drinking some more of that Death Wish coffee. This stuff's really good. And this is Coffee and Trains.
This video is brought to you by Model Railroad Academy. Model Railroad Academy is your online resource for model railroad instructions, ideas, and information, with loads of tutorials and articles for model railroaders of every skill level.
One of my favorite videos that I've watched recently is making your own homemade ballast, and it's just a really cool tutorial that shows you how to make custom ballast in case you're doing a prototype that doesn't have a commercially available ballast. Plus, you can find tutorials on everything from bench work to electronics to scenery, all sorts of things there. The first 1,000 people to sign up at the link in the description below will get a full year of premium membership to Model Railroad Academy for $1.49. Offer is valid for new members only.
If you want to tell me what kind of coffee you're drinking and have it featured just like these guys right here, you can do that in the comments below, and who knows, you might see your name pop up on an episode of Coffee and Trains. And also, you might see a train that's running through the layout here as I'm talking. I'm actually testing out some new Broadway Limited, the NW2s and the SW7s, and I've got those running right here. So they're doing their break-in endurance testing right now, so be on the lookout for those videos. But if you see one running through in the background, that's what I'm doing right there. But let's go ahead and get into your questions. I'll tell you how you can get your questions answered at the end of this video. Cheers. Thomas L. Durbin has two questions. He asks if I've ever used a proto throttle, which is a not yet, because as soon as I can figure out the time to save up some money and put some money away for one, I want to get a proto throttle and see if it'll work on DCCEX. That's a big thing. And he also asks, when did I get into model trains? I've been in this pretty much my entire life. I can remember my dad building a small in-scale model railroad, and I remember the expanding foam that we used for mountains. It's actually why that smell is actually kind of makes me nostalgic. It's kind of one of those weird things, but yeah, I've been in this as long as pretty much I've been alive. Yuki Mitsuhashi asks, what train gauge does Sheldon use in season 1, episode 1? Well, I'm assuming we're talking about young Sheldon here, and that would be 3-rail O gauge, so classic Lionel. Think of the semi-scale stuff. That's what he runs in that. Now, if you're talking about the Big Bang Theory, I don't think he has a train in episode 1, but he does have an HO scale layout that goes underneath his bed, and there's also a mention of M gauge as well in that show. The Confluence PA Rail fan asks, what is the best DCC controller that doesn't involve any complicated wiring? Well, you're not going to get away with zero wiring because most DCC systems don't have everything you need to do this. But honestly, the simplest one without wiring is going to be your phone. Specifically, if you have an Android phone, you can use the Engine Driver app. If you have an iPhone, you can use Y-Throttle. And this is just like, it's so simple. Like the DCC-EX system that I have has Wi-Fi. I just connect to Wi-Fi and connect to it. And there you go. There are Wi-Fi adapters for both NCE and MRC and Digitrax. So this is probably the one that requires the least wiring. And what I actually do is I go online and I buy the most dirt cheap prepaid wireless Android phone, which was, this is a Samsung Galaxy A03, and it was like $50 online. I've seen phones cheaper than that, but that's what I do for my controller. So I do not have a commercially made controller here. Hopefully that'll change with the proto throttle, but the phone, it's the simplest one. Now, it doesn't have some of the tactile stuff that a lot of people want, but it works pretty well. Here, I'll show you. I'll turn the sound on. And you can see it works pretty well right there. Scott D34 asks, what is something good to clean the grease off of new 123 blocks? And the answer is mineral spirits. That is the best thing I have come across to clean off 123 blocks. It's the easiest thing to use, hands down. Just go grab some from your local hardware store and go ahead and do that cleaning. I love 123 blocks. They are awesome for getting perfectly square things and holding stuff in place for gluing and things like that. You also have to do anything to keep them from rusting over time. I don't really do anything, but I also, I keep them pretty much in a toolbox or a toolkit most of the time. So They're not rusting really, so I don't put anything on them, and I have had no issues so far in the 5 years I've had this set. MRR Shadow Wolf asks about removable bases and what to use in terms of thickness and materials. Well, there's two main materials that I've seen used for bases. That is sheet styrene, and you're gonna need something relatively thick. I would think 0.05 or something like that, maybe 0.1. But another one that I see a lot of people use is the sheet of like hobby wood, like not balsa, but like the really thin birch plywood. That's another thing that I've seen people use. So check those two things out. Bill Schneck 9107 asks about a reliable way to uncouple knuckle couplers, specifically in scale. He says he has no problem being able to reliably uncouple Rapido style couplers, but those knuckle couplers are giving him some trouble. Well, the simplest thing that I've used most often is a bamboo skewer. All you gotta do is go in there and just get it right in between them and just twist it and twist it and twist it until it kind of pops loose. That's something that's really good. I've also seen plenty of people use tiny screwdrivers and things like that. But bamboo skewers, just go pick up a pack of them. I've got one laying around here somewhere that I can always go grab a new one for uncoupling. The Noob is me 3515 asks, what is the cheapest way to get realistic roads? So the way that I have two ways that I do roads. One is just going and doing sheet styrene, and I actually just usually go to either a home improvement store or Walmart or somewhere, and I pick up those dirt cheap for sale sign and garage sale signs and just flip them over, cut them up, and spray paint them. And the way that I spray paint them is I do a gray base coat, and then I do some little puffs of black until it gets to a nice, even darker grayish black that looks good for a worn-in road. And the other way that I do it is I use joint compound, the stuff you use for drywall. It takes a little bit longer to dry, but it's also a little bit easier to work with and less expensive than something like spackle. And I used that on MRR1 and had great results with it. The key though is to use either airbrushes or spray paints. That's going to get you the best option. Now, another thing I've seen for adding textures, especially if you're getting into like HO scale or O scale, is using sandpaper on top of styrene. That's another thing that I have seen. And it also depends on how wide your road is or how long your road is. Typically you're looking, if you need to have little joints for different sections, you can use styrene and do it at like intersections or breaks or things like that. You can also cover it up a little bit and make it look like it's a patch in the road as well. Owlwalls723 asked an interesting question. They're starting their first model railroad layout, which is a modern British 00 gauge layout in the States. He said, what would be a cheap way to get American rolling stock that would look like something that would be on a British or European or something like that? So the big thing to remember is that 00 is actually slightly larger in scale than HO scale. It's not much. I want to say it's like HO scale is 187th. I want to say it's like 173 or 171. It's pretty close. It's like the difference between in scales 160th and 150th and 148th. And 150th. That, yeah. But the main ones that look similar, first of all, box cars do not look similar, and a lot of passenger cars do not look similar. But in terms of freight, the ones that I've seen that look most similar are gondolas, flat cars, and tank cars can look pretty similar as well. You may have to do a little bit of modification and customization, but those are some of the ones that look the closest to real, especially if you look at something like transition era. Transition era gondolas are going to look really good for you. Flat cars are going to be good for putting like 20-foot containers on. That's what you see a lot of the intermodal trains are over there. And those are the things that I would definitely look at for those type of things. Those are probably going to be your closest ones. Just look at some pictures of British freight and you should be able to get that. I'd also look at some European freight. One thing you can do that makes it look really European is just put those little buffers on there on the ends. A lot of the time the cars just look almost exactly like American rolling stock with just some buffers on the end. So that's another thing that you can do. Jay Halbrun asks, is there a noticeable difference between power pack transformers you get in starter sets versus ones you would buy separately? And also, what about DCC? So starter transformers are usually not that bad. I have Bachmann ones, I have Kato ones upstairs, and they all run fine. And actually, the ones that you buy separately from Kato are identical to the ones that you buy, that you get in the starter set. Same way with Bachmann. Really, the ones that you're looking at that you're going to get separately that are really just sold that way, are ones from MRC. And those just have a few more controls, a few more protections, and a little bit more engineering behind them. You're going to be able to control trains just fine. You may have some things like on-off switches. You may have some additional connections for accessory power and things like that. Some additional screw terminals and things like that, depending on the power pack that you get. But yeah, that's basically the differences. I don't think a lot of modern Bachmann transformers have accessory connections. Katos do, but Bachmann's I don't believe do, and the MRC ones will. So, and also when you're asking about DCC, most modern DCC engines will run on DC, but if you want to be able to use all of the DCC functions, you're either going to have to get a specialized system that a couple manufacturers make to be able to send the signals through DC, or you're going to have a DCC system to access all the functions. If you're looking at something that's a nice go-between, I would look at something like the MRC Tech 6. It's not a full-blown DCC system, and it's also not quite a DC system. Another great starter is the Digitrax Zephyr as well. Bachmann makes a good starter, and of course there's DCC EX, but that takes slightly more into it with phones and that kind of stuff, but it's still pretty simple. Model Railfan 37 asks, what is the best way to add feeder wires to your layout? They say they currently have DC and DCC controller wired to a toggle switch, which I see a lot of people do, and it's wired directly to the track, and I don't know how to add feeders, and I don't think it's safe to hook multiple wires to the one terminal on my toggle switch. So what I would do, and what I do in this typical situation, is I would wire up a terminal strip and have one wire coming off of that goes back to your toggle switch. Now you'll have to make sure that all your wires are on the same rail, so all the outer rails and all the inner rails match, but that's going to be the best way to do it, is to do like a hub basically, where they all come to a terminal strip. I'll link one in the description below that's really great to use. It's made by Eve Model, I believe. I've used it tons of times and it works really well, but that is what I would do, is a terminal strip, so that way you have plenty of places to hook in, and then there's one wire out to your toggle switch. Chris Bell 52310 asks, when we hear about the UV printer? Well, I'm getting flooded with ads for it and YouTube video suggestions for it and everything, so I think they really want me to found it on Kickstarter, but as of right now, I think that's a little bit out of my price range at around $1,800. That's something that if it were in like directly in model railroading, like an engine or a system or something like that, I'd be more able to justify it. But with it being that much right now, I can't quite justify getting a UV printer, because I can't bring that in here and show you guys and expect you guys to go, you know what? I was going to spend that $1,800 on an engine and some freight cars and all that kind of stuff, but you know what? I'm getting a UV printer. So when it comes out in price or another company comes out with it, I would not be surprised if Elgu is working on one right now. I'll take a look at it, but right now it's still it's still purely in the people who do like creators and things like that, and not quite down to where it's a part of another hobby, in my opinion. Francis Revere 1347 asks about knowing where to get some files off the internet, or even buy some. How do you know how to manipulate and modify them, or even create objects for 3D printing? So that is a very loaded question. Let me start off with the easy part. The free place that's going to be the best bet for finding 3D models is going to be Thingiverse. There's a website called Yeggi as well. That's YEGGI. That will kind of just link to a bunch of different ones. It's kind of like an aggregator, and it just finds them. In terms of purchasing them, there's Cults 3D. That's one that you can purchase. You can also sign up for my Patreon, and I've got about 50 some odd models that I have that you can download and print. But in terms of modifying them and doing some creation with them, that is basically something that's just a whole nother rabbit hole to go down in the hobby. The easiest way to do that is probably Tinkercad. It's what I use. It's a website, tinkercad.com, and you can do those, and you can download the file and put it on your 3D printer and do it. But again, it's a steep learning curve, so you'll have to do that. And this is another reason why I'm considering making that Tinkercad for Model Railroaders guide, so that you guys can have a good base of what to do and how to do it. And I would make this and figure out, I still am kind of don't know exactly how I'm going to do it, but that's one thing that I have considered doing, because there are a lot of people who want to do 3D printing but have no idea how to start, and Tinkercad's a great place to start and get designing for your model railroad. HC Railfan X6X asks, are the submissions for next month's virtual model railroad show open? They have finally had their layout in place after 3 months. So the way that this works is I get a lot more submissions than I can put out in a month. My video would be like really, really long and really, really hard to produce if I put everything that I got in there. So what I do is I put everybody into a queue, and basically I go in there and I pick 10 videos, the next 10 in line, and I go ahead and make the show. I try to show everyone, no matter skill level or anything. We want to lift the entire community up, and I love showing off everyone's work. So basically what you need to do is submit and get them in the queue. You will get an email at some point when I'm able to file an automatic email saying it's been recorded, and I'm really bad about that. I have to go in and manually select it. So if you send it in and you haven't received an email yet, don't worry. I'm going to sit down at some point here in the near future and go through and set all those. And then when you get ready to be on the show, you'll get another email saying that your layout has been scheduled. So that's basically the way that this works now. I'm working on a better system. I'm working on a form that you can fill out and upload pictures and video, and it sends it to me and I take them from there. So that's what I'm working on right now, but right now this is the best way, so you just email them to me. Renapets3 asks, which one has better sound quality, DCC Sound or Kato's Soundbox? So I think this is going to come down to the size of the speaker, and Kato's Soundbox has a better speaker, so it's going to be able to get more of the lower frequencies just because it takes more space to move more air to generate those lower frequencies, which require more air to generate. And so you're going to get more bassy sounds out of a Kato Soundbox versus an in-scale DCC with sound locomotive. But the Kato Soundbox doesn't move around the layout, so it just depends on what you want. If you want your sound to go with your railroad, then go with DCC and sound on board. If you don't, you can go with Kato's Soundbox. Also, if you have DC, it's a great way to do sound on your layout. Mark Z5M3E asks, when can I do an updated layout tour? Well, I'm planning on doing one once I get this entire phase of the layout fixed. This is a phase 2, and I do have a phase 3 plan, which is a little interesting, and it's something that I don't see a lot of people talk about when they talk about this style of what I'm doing with phase 3. So hopefully it's got some interest to you. But as soon as I finish phase 2, which I've got 1, 2, 3 modules left to do, which they're doozies, so that's why I'm kind of taking my time on them. But that's what I will do, is you'll see me do a tour of this entire new setup. James Janisek 26 asks, which big boy do you like more for in-scale, Kato or Broadway Limited? That's like asking me to pick between my 2 kids. I like them both for different reasons. So let me tell you what I like about both of them, because I really can't decide between that. The Kato one is amazingly engineered. It looks phenomenal, and it's everything you can get. And it's one that's like, with everything else Kato, I know it's gonna run. I don't have to worry about it. Obviously, you gotta take care of it. It's got soundtracks sound in it, which I love. But it's just one that if I need to throw a locomotive on, no matter what, without any like additional real setup or anything, and just put some stuff on and let it go that's going to impress people, I'm going to put the Kato on there. Broadway Limited is just as good. It's just that I'm going to do a little bit more setup with it because it has smoke. And the smoke it has, it pours smoke. So I have 2 Broadway Limited big boys. I have a Fantasy 4023 in the Greyhound paint scheme, and I also have 4019 with the smoke deflectors on it. Both have smoke in them. Both, it's just phenomenally well. It puts out a ton of smoke, and I've got an HO scale Broadway Limited Challenger, and those things put out as much smoke as that HO scale locomotive. And they have more features, and I think it's just a matter of what you want. If I want more features and things like that, if I want to run with smoke or everything, I'm running my Broadway Limited engines, which are also period specific. They have coal bunkers and things like that, whereas my Kato one, that is the excursion one. So I can't really run that one prototypically with some older stuff, but I have the whole set of the excursion train from Union Pacific to run with it. So I can't really pick which one I like more because I like them both for different reasons. Okay, if you want to get your questions in for next month's Q&A, put it in the comments below. I ask you try to get them in as fast as possible because I got to start collecting them to produce the video. This video takes a little while to produce, so go ahead and get those questions in and get them in fast. So thank you all so much for watching. Until next time, I'm Jimmy from the DIY and Digital. Stay safe, be kind, drink some coffee because I'm almost out, and happy railroading.